class, today we're going to be learning about color theory. So in order to do that, we're just going to be taking some very basic notes and eventually we'll get into some artwork. So in order to complete this sheet, please make sure that you put your name at the top. And as I just mentioned, this is kind of what I like to think of as just our basic exercise to understand what color is, how we mix colors, and the different types of color schemes that we can use to make our art look more appealing to others as we create it. So I just want to take a moment before we start here defining what color is. I want to share with you guys, this is maybe something that you learned in elementary school. We call him the Rainbow, and his name is Roy G, and then generally they say Biv, so B-I-V. In this class, we're going to take the I out, and we're just going to have kind of like this Biv at the end. And what I want to show you with this, the reason why this can be so important for you, is when we look at these letters, they actually kind of form an acronym that can help us later on. So when I look at this, the R stands for red, O is orange, Y is yellow, green, blue, and then violet. And then what's really nice here is if you don't know your warm and cool colors yet, your warm colors are his first name, and the cool colors are the middle initial and the last name. So that's kind of a fun way to separate that, warm and cool. But also what's kind of neat is the first letter, okay, we can know that as a primary color. And then if we skip and we go to the third color, that is also a primary color. So I'm going to put that as a 1 above. Okay, if I skip a letter and then my last primary color is going to be blue. So every other letter is going to represent my primary color, red, yellow, and blue. And then my secondary colors are going to be orange, green, and violet. So I'm going to put a 2 above those. Okay. And what's really cool is if we remember, like, okay, the first letter is always going to be a primary color and skip every other. Now we can figure out our primaries. And then how we figure out how to make this secondary, we just take the 2 primaries on the outside and we mix them together. So in order to make orange, I mix red and yellow to make orange. Okay? In order to make green, I mix yellow and blue together. Okay? In order to make violet, if I could start his name over again, okay, I would mix red and blue to make violet. So this is a really awesome acronym to know if you're not confident in your primary, secondaries, warm and cool, or how to mix colors, okay? So now that we have that discovered, color is actually created when light reflects off a surface. So the only reason why I can actually see things or to see color is because that's the light wavelength that's actually reflecting back onto the rods and cones that are in my eye. So what I'm going to write here is color is created when light reflects off a surface. And I should have mentioned, you'll notice that I actually wrote this up just a little bit higher. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to make 3 little bullet points because color can actually be broken down into 3 separate categories. Okay? So the first category, I'm going to make my 3 bullet points here, is known as hue. Okay? And hue is just really a nice fancy art term that equals the same, or it means color. Okay? So if I say that you're wearing a really nice hue today, I'm basically saying you're wearing a really nice color. Okay. The next thing about color is its intensity. Okay. And intensity talks about how bright or dull the color is. So I'm going to write equals, and I'm going to write bright / dull. Okay. So if I say, wow, that color is really intense, I'm talking about how bright or dull it is. Okay. And then we have the last one, which is value. Okay, value we know from our elements and principles. It's an element, and it talks about how light or dark a color is. Okay, so I'm going to write light / dark. Okay, so there are my little equations. This is kind of what we can break color down into the hues, the intensity, and the values of color. Okay, so you have on your tabletop a set of colored pencils. I'm going to be using Prismacolors. You can use Prismacolors, but I would prefer that we maybe, for this example, use the colored pencils that I have left on your desk ready for you. And we're going to start off our primary colors. We already know are red, yellow, and blue. So let's find a red, yellow, and blue, and we're going to fill those in. I want to see, we've talked a lot about really nice, wonderful coloring, so I want to see that. Please fill in the whole square. Okay, make it look nice. We've got yellow next. And blue is my last one. If you're a student, if it helps you, you can also write the little letter acronyms. So I could put R, Y, B for red, yellow, and blue. Okay, now let's look at our secondary ones. These are the color equations, right? So we have two primaries that are mixed together to make a secondary. Okay, that's how you make a secondary color. So let's just start off with our first primary, which is going to be red. And if I mix red and let's do our second primary and yellow together, I'm going to get what color, class? Okay, that's right. We're going to get orange. So I'm going to find my orange here very quickly, and I'm going to fill in orange. Another way to think about this, I'm just going to help some of you out because some of you think about it more this way. I could look at my secondary colors that I have written up here. So we already discovered orange. The next one would be green and then eventually violet. I could fill those in first and then fill in the equation to figure out what I need to add together to make the final combination. So I could start by finishing the equation here, okay, with the answer, and then go back through and do the additive properties. So if I have green and violet, okay, so now class we have to figure out what colors make green. Okay, it's going to be our yellow and blue. Okay, so I'm going to put yellow and then blue makes green. And check your coloring, make sure it looks nice and neat. Okay, and then my last set is going to be red and blue. Okay, make violet. Okay, let's just double check. So red and yellow makes orange, yellow and blue makes green, and red and blue make violet. Okay, so this is pretty elementary level. These are things that you should know by the time you leave 5th grade, right? So now let's get into some 7th grade work. These are called tertiary colors. So if you need to make a little note for you to know that it's not tertiary, okay, this has kind of that like sh sound to it. So they're called tertiary colors. If we look at this color wheel right over here, okay, we have our primary colors kind of in a triangular pattern here. Okay? And then in between those primary colors, we have our mix, which is our secondary. Okay? But now look at our color wheel. We have this kind of color in between our primary and our secondary. Okay? And if you can guess it right, yes, that's your tertiary color. Okay? So with tertiary colors, we are mixing a primary plus a secondary in order to make that tertiary. And then you'll notice on these labels, the primary color is always labeled first. So it would be yellow, orange, red, violet. Okay, that is important, that is specific. So for our notes down here, it says, how do you obtain tertiary colors? We are going to mix, okay, a primary plus, I'm just going to make this an equation, a secondary equals a tertiary. Everyone say tertiary. Okay, very good. And then my last little note is going to be that you're always going to label that primary then secondary. So I'm going to make another little bullet and write always labeled primary dash, okay, secondary. Okay, so it's always labeled primary dash secondary. And we can see that example in our color wheel. Okay, so when we go to color this, my recommendation to you so that you always get that thought of primary and then secondary, start by always putting the primary color down first. So we're just going to go around the color wheel here. I like to start with red because, again, it's the beginning of that Roy G. Biv. Okay, and if I go around my circle clockwise, the first color that I'm going to come to is red-orange. So I'm going to put my red down first, and this is important. Please do this lightly because if you press really, really hard, you're not going to get to see the mixture. So I'm putting red down, Then I'm going to put the orange just lightly right over the top, and now I have my red-orange. Okay. The next one that I have here is yellow-orange, so start with the yellow. Then layer the orange over the top. And so on and so forth as we go around the circle here. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that. I'll kind of keep going with mine up here. So the next one would be yellow-green. Again, I'm going to put the yellow down first. And then I'm going to put the green. Okay, then I have blue-green, so I'm going to put the blue down first. Just very lightly. Okay, then the green. Fill in the whole box. Okay, then I did blue-green, so now I'm doing blue-violet. So I'm going to put blue down first again. And then we have our last one, which is red-violet. So I'm going to put red down first. And then my violet over the top. Okay, so there are my tertiary colors. Those are the colors that when you mix the primary with the secondary, you get that tertiary color. So the last color scheme that we're going to kind of work on here before we just finish out with coloring our color wheel is to just cover again our warm and cool colors. So again, this is kind of an elementary level skill. You should know this by the time you leave 5th grade. So when we look at warm and cool colors, our warm colors, again, we already talked about, are the first letters of his name. So red, orange, and yellow. So I realize I'm kind of doing them backwards here, but I'm going to start with red first. Then we move to orange. And yellow. Okay. Then my cool colors are his middle initial and his last name. So that would be green, blue, and violet. I'm going to start with green. Blue. And then violet. Again, if you're one of those students and you want to take the time to label them, you certainly can. But for me, you know, we've gone through this now. We can understand kind of correlating there back to our color wheel. So for the remainder of our time together, we're just going to take the time to finish coloring our color wheel. And I'm going to encourage you to do it in a specific way. Okay? Don't just go around the circle and fill it in. I mean, yes, you can certainly do that, but I think to really help train your brain, like between your primaries and then your secondaries and how to mix colors, I would start first at your primary level. Color in all of your primaries first. So that would be like coloring in the red, then the yellow, and then the blue. You can fill in this middle section here too. So I could come in here and fill in the red. After you get done with all of your primaries, then I would shift to moving on to your secondaries. Mix those ones together next. Okay. Then the last step would be to go through and practice putting your primary color down, then your secondary, so that you really just get in that mindset that that's the order that you need to color them to get them to mix together. Okay, so for the rest of the hour, we're going to work on finishing our color wheel for today.